My guest today is Dene Josham. He's someone that's been on an interesting journey pretty much throughout his life. From being an overweight child who was bullied at school, to changing his life by joining the military, changing it further still through a physical accident, and now finding himself in a position where he's supporting others in terms of self-defense, self-esteem, and everything that goes with that. I'm interested to have this conversation with him today to further explore his journey and some of the things that he's done, including bodyguarding for some well-known individuals. Dene, thank you for joining me today.
Hi, Philip.
I've done that quick introduction there, but I get like all of my guests, I can't really do it justice. Talk me through that childhood. You mentioned, joining the military. There's a couple of bits, I guess, between that. That's, the catalyst for saying, you know what, I'm going to make some changes here. So talk me through your journey and your experience.
Yeah, I suppose as a childhood, I was an overweight kid. I had a speech impediment and I'm a little bit dyslexic. So I struggled with certain elements at school, which highlighted me. I got massively bullied. And from that into secondary school, it kind of made me look at, being more physical. And that's when I started growing up, getting taller. And I started training, looking after myself, and kind of turned it around from what I was to sort of created what I wanted to be. And from there, I was always very physical, played county cricket. Then I took up boxing and martial arts to kind of put this outer armor on, if you like, from, kind of like don't call me names and all that kind of stuff. And then I went down the military career, which was I had 2 years in the fire brigade, and then I moved to the military, and that was short lived because of an accident I had when I was on summer leave. So it kind of pushed me down this path now to being a protector and trying to help other people avoid, the trauma of a physical attack or an emotional attack. So it's kind of shaped my life, I suppose. So it's a lot of positives, definitely.
Yeah, so interested to expand upon that. So you mentioned the military was short-lived, unfortunately. There are a couple of things that happens there. But talk me through that experience. The training, was there anything that you had to overcome as an individual as part of that training? Did it change you in terms of your perspectives of the world around you? Because again, you're moving into a situation where it's like you are one of a group of people, soldiers all together in a troop platoon, whatever it may be. That I'm interested to that dynamic and whether it ended up shifting you in any way, your mindset, your beliefs. Just because the people who we support with this podcast, a lot of the time it is about recognizing that they can make changes and that those changes, it's important for them to happen. So I'm just interested to hear that from your perspective. Say, okay, you may have gone into the military with one viewpoint, but whether that shifted through your training and your experience.
Yeah, life's very interesting. It's like a study of people over the years. And I think what the military gave me was, it was very focused. Everybody was driven or, going the same kind of direction. And within training, it was really interesting. The different characters you'd get, the different motivations, why people are there. Some people didn't really want to be there. Some trying it. For me, I was late joining. I was 26. So it was like, I had no other option. That was me. I was focused. I'd done some stuff before. With the military that I really enjoyed, and I wanted to do it full time. Hence, that's why I went down to Lympstone and joined the Marines. Massive challenge as learning about myself. You do get, you got a good voice and a bad voice, and the bad voice sort of creeps up sometimes when you're having a bad day, like we all do still. And you got to kind of turn that down. And yeah, always an interesting internal conversation of how you can frame things as well. Sometimes it's like playing little games with yourself to get past things, and I suppose some of the physical stuff I did was, I always used to think of it like a mountain. If you got halfway through it, then you're downhill. And I kind of used to play these kind of tricks on myself to just push past things as well. But yeah, really interested in human nature, as is always. And with the stuff that we do now, that's a massive part of it. And it's, I'm always learning. It's always very interesting studying and how they are, and myself. I'm still learning about myself.
Yeah, interesting what you said there about playing those games with yourself and almost thinking about it as a mountain and okay, I've got to go halfway up, but then the rest of it is downhill. And I guess actually we can take that into all areas, or taking a similar approach. For me, and in my book, I talk about almost building in some rewards, because again, delayed gratification, it may be that you have to go through certain things to get to the point that you want to get to. So climbing and getting down to the mountain, okay, well, the end point is finishing and getting to the goal or whatever it is, back to camp or anything like that. Yeah. So it's like, okay, what's the reward that you can give yourself halfway up? Or okay, maybe it's the view and the fact that yes, the rest of it is downhill. For me, it's like, I'll write a chapter of the book. Okay, what's my reward? Maybe it's a slice of cake, or a coffee. And it's like, sometimes we can build in, if we do play those games with ourselves and say, okay, there's something here that I need to do. There's some steps I need to take. It's going to contribute to a bigger picture, but that bigger picture may take a long time to actually come to the fore. How can I reward myself? How can I condition myself to take the steps that I need to take? So interesting to hear how you positioned that.
I think with that as well is I think people are always focused on massive tasks, big tasks and goals, which I think is great, and we should be, but we don't reflect enough to how much we've actually done. So you can get caught up in the day-to-day stuff, and you think I'm not getting anywhere to my goal, but really, these little steps are adding up and adding up. And I think it's always important. Like this year for us, we've done quite a lot this year, and because we're focused on getting to that goal, keep pushing on. It's nice to stop sometimes and think how far you have come and the challenges that we've all overcome every day. Sometimes it's a challenge getting out of bed for some people. And now and again, I'm like that. I'm like, gloomy day, and you kind of go, okay, what's charging me up? What's my passion? What's making me do this? It's always to realize that and how far you've actually come, because I think we forget a lot of the challenges that we've had on the way because that's gone, and now we're focused. Results.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, because a lot of people, they do gratitude exercises. I do them on occasion, and I look back and I'm thankful for the things that I've experienced, but also some of the challenges that I've overcome, because I've been able to demonstrate that I can overcome those challenges. And a lot of the times when people look back, they all look back at the negative. They let the past define them, rather than saying, well, actually, hang on, no, I either dealt with this or it was a learning opportunity. And there are other ways that we can look at our past. So great to hear your perspective on that.
What about you with your breaking your neck? What was the biggest challenges there for you? Because that must have been, wow, psychology and
It was a challenge because I didn't know for 7 weeks.
Wow.
I just got physio, thinking it was just muscle stiffness and, do some physio work and it would ease off. And it was, 7 weeks later, the physio's like, it's not really working. Maybe you should go and get some scans. So I'd already been 7 weeks with a broken neck unknowingly before I then went and got scans. And then I was also a case of, I now can't afford surgery. Okay, guess what? I am going to have to put faith in myself that I can heal it, because there's no other option. I didn't have the money to get the surgery, which could have been 6 hours on a table, cuts front and back, do one bit, then do the other bit, put plates and screws in and all of that. I was like, okay, we'll just have to wait and see what happens. So absolutely a mindset thing. I write about it in my book. It's just, I sat with a consultant and he was like, this is broken. This is what you need. I'm just like, I literally shut down, and it's hard, tough sometimes. It is hard.
Especially with a life-changing injury. It's like, for me, it sort of shattered the 26 years of what I, built up, or what I became, if you like. And sitting there going, we might amputate your leg. You're never going to run again. You're not going to do this. You're going to do that. Blah blah blah. And you're like, it's kind of it's pretty overwhelming, isn't it? To such a big adjustment that someone's just thrown at you, like trying to process this. It's not easy.
Yeah. So talk me through that, because you've had an injury yourself, and obviously largely the other side of that now. And but that situation, how did it come about? How did you deal with it? What was the response from people around you? Did they support you? Obviously, there's always an internal thing of how do we deal with a situation that's in front of us, but sometimes it does impact those around us as well.
Yeah, massively. I was on summer leave. I'd gone down to my sister's in Bristol, spent a few days there. I'd gone out with my brother-in-law for just a couple of drinks because I was partway through training and I was so focused. And I got hit. I got hit by a drunk driver outside a pub. Pub was closed. We were just getting ready to walk home, and this car come out of over brow of a hill, came out of nowhere, hit a couple of parked cars, and just glanced me, and unfortunately hit my right lower leg and shattered it, dislocated it, and all sorts of things. And yeah, I got good support from the family. At the time, spent some time in hospital. Excuse me. Had to go back to the Marines. Then I got discharged and to see how, well, I got put on sick to see how I sort of progressed to getting it fixed. And then I spent 3 months. I got an infection in one of the pins in my foot that I had in, and I got MRSA. So I spent 3 months in French hospital in isolation, and that was kind of an interesting time. My mum came every, bless her, she came every day to sit with me, although I wasn't a great person to sit with because I was obviously, got a lot of things going on, and I wasn't very well because of the MRSA. It's super bug, and well, it did batter me, to be honest. And I had every day somebody coming in, doctor saying, we might have to amputate your leg and all that. So yeah, good family support, and that was probably the biggest thing that helped me through. My nephew at the time was probably about 7, and that was a big driving force for me because it's like, how do I deal with this to show him, what's the alternative? I check out, and what does that, show him? It's like, okay, it's going to be tough. It's a readjustment. So yeah, it was difficult times because I was back and forth to the Marines trying to stay in there, deal with all that, as well as the reality of what the doctors were telling me and the surgeons, just trying to just focus on getting better to the best I could. So yeah, tricky time.
Interesting point you made there, that the power or that the impacts that your nephew had on you, and
massive.
That the people around you, and the fact that it's like, okay, do you take the I'm going to do this in inverted commas because it's never a good subject to talk about, but it's like, do you take that easy option and the easy way out, or do you say, you know what, no, there are people that I want to support that are important to me. How do I get through this situation? What changes do I make? Is it changes in the way that I live? Is it changes in my mindset, environment, whatever it may be? And I think that's just a key point for anyone listening to say, yes, our journey is our own, our story is our own, but there may be people that, we look to, that we depend upon and that depend upon us. And maybe there are things that we need to do and consider because it can impact other people around us.
Yeah, I think that's from all the stuff I've done, I always kind of quite in tune with people and the surroundings and environment and the atmospherics of places and what's going on. And I saw the suffering that the people around me, because people go through that suffering with you because the family or friends, they don't want to see you suffer. So I could see that element as well. And also it's hard, isn't it, for people that care for you? They can't, in that situation, they can't do anything really. They can support and be there, and try and do what they can to get through. But you're going through it personally, so. And realizing that, looking around me and the people around me, is something we talk about when we share our training, and that is, what motivates you, what can potentially make you do some extraordinary things, situations that you might not, and that's the people around us that we love and care for, because and it could animals, dogs, cats, these driving factors in our life that we are so caring for, that influences so much. We can flip that as well to a positive. And for me, it was trying to, and I went from the very, very physical to, okay, now I've got to try and use my brain a bit more. So that's where I kind of go, sort of flipped a little bit from physical to, okay, I need to start using the brain, and how can I engage that more, because I've used physicalness. and yeah, massive power from family and friends and that and support. Although they never truly understand what you're going through, but that's a personal journey for everybody. I think it's keeping that in sight and going, okay, how can bad things happen? How can we turn it around to get some good out of it, some positive? And by doing that, hopefully it might touch one or two other people that might be struggling as well. That's why I talk about, when I was a kid and overweight and bullying and all that is horrible. I used to run away from school and stuff. A load of things, and people aren't alone. It's just unfortunately these things happen in life, and yeah, life's always going on, life's always changing for us, and it's trying to create that robustness that what would makes us keep doing what we do and keep that passion and that drive going for life and for what we're doing.
Yeah. So talk me through, you discharged from the military. What happens next?
Took about a year because I was back and forth, which was kind of traumatic in itself, going back to see my old troop. Good mate of mine that I was in, I had to get moved to I got back troop because of my injury, so they gave me enough time to see if I could get fixed. That was kind of emotional. And then when I actually decided that I was getting medically discharged, then there's a room that you get put in called the crumb room, getting rid of your crumb. And that was, there was a lot of other guys in there that got injury through training and all sorts, and that was kind of like, I was only in there a few days, and that was kind of like a bit of an eye to realize some of these other guys. I remember one guy in there done something on training, and he was only probably early 20s. He's looking at 2 hip replacements. I was like, all these other injuries. So after I got out, it was quite a dark time. It was just I struggled with coming back into like normal life because I'd been around that people that were driven, and there wasn't any problems. There's always solution, which I think I've taken away from now in life. Is like, okay, we get problems, but right, let's look at the solutions. Let not problem stop us. Let's see how we can solve that problem. So yeah, real adjustment time. I had other surgeries as well. I was in and out, getting pinned up, plated up, all that kind of thing. So it was probably about 4 or 5 years where it was a real transition into try and get back into normal society, looking at what I could do, what I could retrain as. I struggled. I drank a lot, turned to, smoked a lot, turned to these kind of crutches that kind of blanked stuff out. Physically, I used to struggle to get up in the morning. I used to have to crawl to the bathroom because of the pain and all this kind of stuff. And then I got a chance to do, all the jobs I did before. I was cleaning bricks for 25 quid a day. Sat down because I couldn't stand because of pain and everything. And I was a very angry man. So I had all these kind of internal demons, I suppose, trying to put them in place. And it was a friend of mine who was in a military unit, and he said there's a close protection course. He said one of the guys has dropped out. I said, will you jump in? It's like 2 days. I was like, yeah, great. I jumped on that. It was about a week-long course. Got licensed, and then because of some of the guys that I knew, and they were looking for other guys to help them doing private jobs, things like that. That's when I sort of entered the private security industry, and from that, I slowly started getting back into work. I had to kind of always looking at a job as in how I could manage that physically because of my limitations. And then Iraq started, and the private security industry over there sort of took off. And I got a call about if I could go out there, which was at the time my only option because everything else in the UK that I was doing had kind of stopped. And I got on a plane over there. And I must admit, my idea was not to come back. A couple of things. I thought, well, if I don't come back, then that's my issue sorted out. But also, I was worth £375,000 to my family. So I'm like, oh, there's 2 things there that kind of might work out. But I did come back, thankfully. So I spent back and forth for about a year, back and forth over there in total. And from that, because of the other people that I knew, there was jobs coming up, and that's when I got to start with looking after the celebrity stuff, which was just people I knew. Hopefully, I did a good job. Hopefully, I'm a reasonable person, and I got to start in that kind of area of the industry, which totally polar opposite from doing the hostile stuff. So yeah, it was that adjustment period, and then that kind of snowballed on from there. Doing the celebrity stuff and other stuff around the world. Went out to Tunisia 2 days after the Arab Springs, when that happened, to look after the CEO of British Gas out there to keep the power plants going to provide the power for Tunisia for the people. And so I kind of bounced between the hostile and the kind of like fancy stuff, and it was bizarre sometimes because I remember being in a tin hut in Iraq, and then a week later I was in the Beverly Hills looking after Russell, well, his wife and his Charlie's youngest kid, and it was like going down to the pool and just making sure that his young Charlie's all right, and with the nanny and stuff, and it was real kind of flip flap from situations, quite bizarre, but that's kind of like how I got back into doing what I'm doing now. And then obviously I've taken a little bit of a different turn now because I realized the experiences that I've had and the skill set, it's like now I need to share that with more people so people can look after themselves and their families and stay safer. So fortunately, there's still this big demand that there are bad things happening in the world, and we need to be able to, it's like a skill set, we need to be able to look after ourselves and our loved ones. So there's a long version of it for you.
No, that's great, because it's useful to understand that journey that you've been on. And just to dig into that a little deeper, don't necessarily need names, but Iraq to Beverly Hills, and you mentioned sort of flip-flopping between different scenarios. Perception is one of the chains that I talk about. How did that experience change your perception of the world around you? And what's, I guess, your view of other people's perception of you, given that, again, 1 week you may be in Iraq and another week you may be chilling by the pool and supporting a celebrity? I'm just interested because, again, a lot of the time we end up creating images in our head of what we think other people think of us. And whether you actually ended up having conversations with people and whether they told you what they thought of you and how you turned your life around and some of the stuff that you're doing. I'm just interested to explore that in a bit more detail.
Yeah, every environment's very interesting and different, and the people in it. With Iraq, obviously we have weapons. That's a given over there at the time, and I think the biggest thing I take away over the years is people. You're dealing with people. It's in Iraq. There were guys coming to the site to get work every day. They work, and I think the day rate was something like $5. You're like, that's nothing. But these guys would come. There'd be groups of 20 or 30 of them every day. They'd turn up because they're trying to survive. So I would treat them as I would treat a celebrity or anybody, because they're still human. They have their struggles, and that was across the board with going from in hostile places, trying to understand the cultural issues they have, and talking to people on a one-on-one and never dismissing anybody, because everybody's a person and everybody counts. And that kind of rolled over into the bodyguard and into the going to all the nice hotels and all the private jets and that. And I'll treat whether you're there's a lady in Dorchester Hotel, Doris. Oh, awesome. She must have been there 35 years. Like, she's like one of the pillars of that place, because without her, wouldn't be what it was. So, down to anybody in that hotel or wherever I am, I try and treat them fairly and decently as a human being, because you always get the best out of people. And if you can, have a nice interaction with somebody, then why not? And I've seen other guys that go in places that have been very different, and people just shut down. It's like, okay, I remember a time in overseas, I won't say where, but dealing with a hotel, and one of the guys said to me, "Oh, the manager's this, is that," and I'm like, "Okay, go. What's happened?" I actually got there, and because I was going to be at the hotel the most, and I had to deal with the staff and everybody, I went to the guy. I said, "Look, we've got this client coming in, and this is your hotel. How can we work with you to make this smooth? This is what we'd kind of like to try and do, but obviously this is your domain, but we need your help on this. And the guy was great. He was an ex, I think he's ex FBI something, and this was his retirement plan, looking after this really nice hotel. So it was his kind of like baby. And just by going in there and talking to him on the level and listening to him, I found out loads about him. And he was a really interesting guy. And in the end, he was very, he understood that I sort of said, look, can we do this? If we can't, what's the best we can do? And it's working with people. I think that is a big thing I take away from everything I've done is trying to understand the other person, their perspective, what they're trying to achieve, and then sort of going, okay, let's work together. Let's get a win-win. It's not about dominating and crushing people or just get out of my way because I want to get there. It's like, why not have this journey of trying to have these nice interactions with people to get to places that is beneficial for everybody. These people that tread on people, that's kind of, to me, sometimes I think is that something in them? That's something they need to address. But yeah, very different places. Yeah, just kind of like I'm very fortunate, and I look back and I always try and be very humble because it's something I've done, and I'm very fortunate. And my partner Julie, she sometimes says, "You've done a lot," and I'm like, "Have I?" I'm like, "It's just something like yourself. You just do what you do." And then when somebody says, "Actually, you've done quite a bit," and sometimes you have to sit back and go, "Well, actually, I've actually had some great experiences, some experiences that not many people get privileged to." So yeah, it's been a very interesting journey. Been very lucky, lots of bads, lots of goods, like everybody. And it's just like you look back and go, wow, still there. Yeah, it's all good.
And I think that's a key point for anybody listening or watching is, yes, you've mentioned it there, the ups and the downs, the good and the bad. Some things may be there to redirect us.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. I always think like when I was in the military, I'm quite a big guy. Casey, a mate I was in with, he got through training, he's a good soldier and a good Marine. And we always laugh together because I'm still still really good mates after 20 odd years. And I was the oldest and he was the youngest, and they put us together. I'm like, they did me a favor because he was an awesome soldier. But we laugh now because I'm like, I would have probably got blown up or shot because I would have been the biggest one kicking in the doors and all this. So you kind of go, okay, what happened, and now I'm down this path. And I'm like, okay, maybe my role was something different. So yeah.
So talk me through your role now with Streetwise. As I understand it, you moved on from the bodyguarding. You're now focusing on helping individuals develop themselves. Talk me through that. What is the work that you do? How are you supporting people?
Yeah, so it came about, I kind of did self-defense over the years back and forth because I've done martial arts and a lot of boxing and all that. And because of the last couple of years, how everything changed within our industry, with, not being able to fly and people kind of, lockdowns and all that, it gave me the chance to look at, right, I can't do that because that's not happening. So, excuse me, it made me look at the self-defense, which I've got, I love doing it because I can see the benefits to people. I wish I didn't have to because it means it's not safe, out there, and that's just how it is. So we had a chance to look at that through Julie's help. She's massively helped the website, give it, look at it from a perspective of we all need it. Even guys, I'm like, guys that sort of push back, I don't need self-defense. It's like, I know a lot. I'm still trying to learn all the time. This kind of like alpha, I don't know, I'm tough, I can look after myself. It's like, well, that's kind of working against herself. So it's gone from where we were a bit sort of mixed martial arts, and then the learning I've had over the last sort of 3 or 4 years, digging into the trauma side of it, understanding people's trauma, and getting away from the physical elements, which I'm a martial artist, a lot of martial artists sort of go, it's an hour smashing the pads and punching and kicking. It's like, whoa, we have to look at the reality in 2023. And the reality is it's a lot closer to home. The psychological side of it is massive. Human interaction, human behavior, understanding how people are between each other, and also looking at behavioral red flags. That's the biggest one. What potentially somebody could pose a danger to me. And the stats are, around about 90% of attackers are known to the person. still in the UK, every 3 days, a woman is murdered. Normally by, I think it's something like nearly 70% by an ex-partner or an intimate partner. So it's a lot closer to home. The danger stranger is out there, but it's more, the circles that we move in that poses the greatest threat. So it's trying to re-educate people away from the martial arts, the UFC, the kind of bare knuckle fighting. Yeah, they're combat sports. We're talking about self-defense, which that has to be applicable for all ages, all backgrounds. And to think you've got to be my size and my experience to look after yourself, it's just not needed. And also how things happen, the different kinds of violence that we look at. So it's a real deep dig into violence, because we have to understand it so we can either avoid it, or if we can't, for whatever reasons, we understand what we can do. And also looking at mindset, because people struggle with certain things, and I get that, the body's reactions to adrenaline, all this fear, and also the physical element isn't martial arts based. We looked at the reality and what's effective, and to think you've got to be a black belt isn't realistic, and potentially it's going to work against you, because how violence happens, it's very raw. There's no rules. It's like we said about what would you do in a situation that could be life threatening, and we go back to family and friends, and cats, dogs. We've got a dog, Teddy. He's awesome. How would you protect your animal, your beloved dog, or your child, or whoever's special to you? Imagine if you're in a position that you can't avoid everything. You can't get away, you can't de-escalate. You've done everything you can, and you have to be physical. And you go, I don't want to be physical. So, like for yourself, don't tell me who who needs to see you, who depends on you. Is it mum, gran, auntie, sister, best friend? It's like that person needs to see you. Nobody has a right to stop you from seeing that person. So it's about looking at it uncomfortably in some aspects, because I think I've just done a diploma with trauma-informed schools, and wow, understanding trauma, generational trauma that's passed on, before we're even born, and that's made me look at sort of my traumas as a child, what might have been passed on for me. My grandparents are both from Second World War, so I'm looking at that now, going, okay, what did they suffer? What is that passed on somehow to me? Have I passed something on to my kids? Because when I look at when I was younger, how I probably was, that's affected the people around me. I look back and think, oh, my poor mother. I'm like, how I was when I was younger. I'm not proud of some of the things. Now I'm like, wow, I need to be accountable for what I am now and how I act. So, it's a big topic to cover. And also it's a lot of self-reflection to realize what part we play in it, positive, negative, especially talking to young guys, and, this kind of like alpha male kind of idea people have. And it's like, there's a smarter way. I've been down the road of could have done some bad stuff. Fortunately, I came out okay. But like I share, I've been arrested when I was younger a lot of times, went to Crown Court for a 2-day trial. These got me into a lot of trouble, and I'm not proud of any of that. And looking back now, there was ways I could have influenced that a lot positively, and I could have avoided it. So I was trying to transfer that knowledge onto other people and realize, on the physical element as well, that we're all capable. Physical stuff we deal is simplistic and very effective. It has to be, because of so many elements of how things happen. You're dealing with sorts of emotion well. So it's one of them misunderstood topics that we're trying to shine more light on, to make people realize there's like all this we can do before the physical, which is that. So it's interesting. It's enjoyable, because I know once we get in front of people and we go through the education, share stuff, then it's kind of like a bit of a wow moment. I wasn't expecting that, in a good way. So as you can see, I'll talk forever on it, because
no, it's great. Again, so
stop.
Is it workshops? Is it going into schools? I'm interested to understand how it is that you're providing your service, because it is such a big topic.
Yeah, it's workshops, because we realize, we go to clients, we go to schools, universities, colleges, companies, communities, individuals, families. We'll go anywhere, and it's in workshop form, because we realize, it's coming every week for an hour or 2 hours. It's kind of like, it's not realistic. That's why we always go to people, because there's one or two of us and it's easy to put a kit in and travel. And we sort of say normally 3.5 hours of comfort breaks is a good basis to understand, the kind of the raw elements to make yourself safer. Yes, we covered the physical in that. It's one of them topics that people don't give enough time to. So we're in that battle between, how much time can you give us? If you get, we've done a full day training, which is great. We can take a time, we can look at scenario, situation, explore people's concerns or worries, revisit them in a safe environment and go, okay, let's revisit that. Right, what about this option, that option? So the more time we get with people, the more we can dig into things. It's difficult when people say, can you do an hour? It's like, yes, we can, but we're just sort of scratching the surface, and we can give good information and knowledge. But it's like driving. How many hours do you take driving? It's like, how good do you want to be? How much do you want to understand? So it's a fine line, because I know, especially with companies, timetables and that, it's like, but we need to be productive. I'm like, yeah, but without your people, you're not productive. So it's like, and also how that can affect company, the company family, the people in that, and also private people, the people's family. So it's misunderstood topic that we're kind of battling against. But it's nice when we get in front of people, because kind of the light bulbs go on and go, oh wow, I wasn't expecting that. I thought it's this. And it's like, yeah, that's the very old way of thinking that we all kind of thought it was. And now, there's some good instructors out there that are highlighting this, that are bringing it to the front. That's where I like to say violence prevention needs to be, because self-defense it's kind of 80s, 90s. We've got to prevent this from happening, rather than self-defense, self-protection. And that's the body and the mind as well. Psychological abuse, it's massive. It's across the board. I dated a lady who was a narcissist quite a few years ago, and I didn't know what a narcissist is at the time. And I share this with people because I'm like, so manipulative, so controlling. I doubted my own reality, and I'm quite a strong character. I actually rang up crisis management, and I hope anyone listening hasn't rang up crisis management, because what it means is you're on the edge. Like, I always questioned my reality, because I cared for this woman, and it was like a massive wake up call to me. Like, wow, narcissism isn't a mental illness, and I hadn't experienced that. So now I'm very understanding of that, to say to people, look at, make sure a good person's a good person. If they're kind of being controlling and manipulative, then you've got to ask yourself, is that a healthy relationship? Is that toxic? Toxic stress, toxic relationship, trauma bonds, things like that, which I go into as well, because that's part of keeping self protected emotionally and physically. And that's what people don't realize, the emotional side of self-defense, keeping that right as well as the body. So yeah, it's a big, because as I rant on again.
It's useful because it links nicely to the relationship chain that I talk about, and I position them as positive and negative, and being able to score them on a rating of 1 to 10. Anybody who's a 6 or less, maybe there's an assessment to be done there of how much time and energy you spend, because clearly if you are rating them almost negatively, then clearly there's something not right with that relationship, whatever it may be. And so it's like, you need to take that time and assess, is it trauma? Is it, something else that is influencing that relationship and the energy around it? I've written in my book, I've had to sack clients just because they were draining me. I every time I received a phone call, I was like, oh, what now? And it's like, that's not a positive state to be in. So, interesting to hear you say that. Moving topic slightly. You've been through a lot on your journey through life so far. Obviously, you're now working on this self-defense and supporting other people and things like that. What does freedom look like for you in terms of the way that you live your life, the things that you're working towards, how you perceive the world around you?
Good question. I think having that passion and drive, all the stuff I've done, been very fortunate, and I've enjoyed that, but not to the state of where I am now, where I'm driven because I realize the big impact we can have. We need generational change on a lot of things, and one is to understand violence and staying safe. For me, there's a lot of things in schools that should be taught that aren't, and this, defense of the self should be priority, because it's, they're focused on results and exams and careers, and that's great. And yes, that's important. But we need to also have that basic understanding of how to look after ourselves. Yeah. Oh, sorry, my mind's drifted then. What's
It's okay,
I've gone off topic there, have I?
It's fine, because I ask people this question sometimes, like, you know what, I've
freedom.
never really
Sorry, yeah.
sat down to think about it in that way, and that's the whole purpose of the book as well. I've had people come back and go, I've never actually sat down and thought about what it is that I want. So I asked that question just to see if any of my guests have done those sorts of exercises and thought about it. For you, I guess it sounds like, and again from what I'm hearing, you have now found your freedom because you're in a position where you're working on a passion project. So your time, your energy is going into something that, again, fuels you, and it's something that you want to do. And being able to focus on that without lots of other things in the backgrounds. Again, this is what it sounds like, and what I'm hearing, that for you is giving you a sense of freedom.
It's that drive that I don't feel like any of this is work. I'm quite happy to sit here and doing whatever, or out. We're down in London a lot. We travel anywhere. I will travel anywhere. I'll go Timbuktu, wherever, if people need the help and support. Because, and also if it's that one difference to one person that makes an impact, then that can resonate and help other people. So, freedom is like now being able to do stuff like this, chat to yourself, get to know you, and share our knowledge, and not call the shots as in being controlling, but it's nice to know that, if I get up at 3 a.m, that's because I want to drive down to London to get there for 7 or 8 or 9 or whatever, to deliver some training to students, to companies that has value to people. And it's always very humbling if we get nice feedback. And, I always find it really weird if people at the end of the session, they clap. I'm just like, somebody just come in the room. That's important, because it's just what we do. So it's nice to get that feedback that we are making a positive impact on people's lives. I think that's freedom that we have now, is we're flexible to what we can do. We're always trying to grow. We're trying to reach more people, trying to share this message. I feel like we're on a mission to create that generational change, to get people to talk about an uncomfortable topic. Because like I always say, in my mum's day, things happened and that was just what happened. You just got on with it. And I'm like, that's not acceptable. We have to call perpetrators out. We have to, stop this. We have to come together, share that knowledge, information, that understanding. And also, I kind of feel once people understand the topic, that when they walk in the room, that room's a little bit safer, because they realize where potential dangers might lie, what they might need to look out for. They're more aware of their self in positive ways, not paranoid ways, in a good positive way. It's empowering. And that's what I think is important for everybody. If we can share stuff to empower people, to make them do some good stuff or extraordinary stuff, to make a positive impact, that's just going to resonate across the board and create better communities, better environment, and a better world for everybody, which is needed, as we all know how things have been and need to change.
Absolutely. And so, final one for you.
Yeah.
3 pieces of guidance that you would give. So people who are feeling, stuck or frustrated in their current situations, who want to make some changes, maybe it is break free and set up their own business, maybe it is about a relationship. What are some of those things that you would say to them?
3 things. Wow. Good question. Never thought about this. I think you've got to believe in yourself. Definitely, massively believe in yourself. Have that unwavering certainty in yourself and your abilities. You might not have a skill set, but you can go and get it. Nothing's impossible, I don't think. I look around, I know we've always done this, look around at other people, and I'm looking at that person going, well, they're no different from me. They're not special in any way. Maybe I can do that. And having that self-belief. Not everything's, things are temporary. So like, you get your down days. I get that. That's okay. I would say have your down days, have your pity party or whatever, but then give yourself a kick up the backside and say, okay, because the only person that's really going to affect is you. Sometimes we can be our own worst enemies. I've been there, and it's to realize, okay, I'm having a bit of a day today. What can I do? Can I just do something little that puts me nearer to where I want to be? So there's a positive there. Yeah, and understanding yourself. I think we all shy away from like our demons or our faults, and it's like own them. Own who you are, what you are, where you've come from, and get be empowered from that. Yes, I know really bad things happen. A lot worse things happen to people than ever happened to me. But it's relevant to that person, and look at the strength you've had to get through. Because if you're still here, you're doing, you're still here, and that's a big thing with everything that's going on. Especially like with guys, mental health, suicide rate's massive, and that's I can, personal experience from um, how that's affected people around me as well. And it's like, take strength from that. You're still here. You can make the change. Sometimes it's hard, and you don't know where to start. But look for help. Ask people. I think most people are good people, and it's surprising. You come from a good place, asking for some help or some advice. People will give you that. And if they don't, well, that's a reflection of them. And you think, okay, next. Don't let people put you off as well. I think don't let people crush what you want to achieve. Like, we got a massive goal, and Julie sort of, I said, oh, I want us as a collective to train over 10 million people, because I know them kind of figures. You think, well, that's massive. Yeah, why not? Because I know if we got to that stage where we help educate 10 million people, and that's good, the ripple effect's going to be, mega. And why not? It's like anything. Why not just keep going for it and be relentless? So there's about 5 or 6 things I've waffled on there. Just be relentless. Whatever drives you. I just jumped back to when had my leg smashed, and I know there was one or two people that probably went ha 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 because they probably didn't like me, and that's fine. Not everyone's going to like each other, and that's life. But that actually drove me on, because I was kind of, back then it was like a negative empowerment, because I'm like, if I'm just walking around town on my crutches and somebody sort of that annoys somebody, I'm like, I'll use that energy, and that's bad energy, but it was used in a positive way. And sometimes it's like, people, I'll show you. Okay, we'll do it. And show that person. You don't have to go and tell them, but you get a self-satisfaction that you've done something that somebody might have said, you can't do that. Maybe they can't, but it doesn't mean that you can't. So I think, it's being empowered with yourself and just keep going, being relentless. Every little win's a win. If you're moving closer to your goal and what you want to achieve, just keep going, keep slogging away, because sometimes it is a slog.